Development on the northern front about which India should worry, but I'll come to that in a bit. Americans, of course, are concerned at this, which is China upgrading its nuclear infrastructure in the deserts of Xinjiang near the Lop Nor site, where they have had their nuclear tests from the 1960s onwards, and hence have developed whatever nuclear infrastructure they have, substantial bit of it in that area, in that desert. Satellite imagery has captured an upgrade of that Chinese nuclear missile infrastructure in those areas of Xinjiang, and obviously caught by American satellites. In fact, some of these structures are bigger than the Pentagon, and they are aimed at strengthening or hardening the already existing nuclear missile infrastructure or silos where the nuclear missiles of China are dumped and kept. In fact, some of them are launch pads also, and as the news report by Reuters calls them, they are octagonal in shape, so in a way one up on the Pentagon as well, complete with command, control and communications systems and related infrastructure, and a commensurate military strength in terms of personnel to make it war ready. Now, what could be the objectives? This is also the site, or these places are exactly the places spread about 1,000 square kilometer of area, where China's original nuclear infrastructure has existed since the 1950s, 60s, and it has, as I said, carried all its nuclear tests in those areas, including the Lop Nor site, where the Chinese obliged the Pakistanis also by carrying out a nuclear test for them. But coming back to the present, and analysts and observers in the United States particularly have noted the mind-blowing scale of this upgrade, and that's something which has got the Americans worried as to why the Chinese are doing it. Even earlier there were reports that China is upgrading and building nuclear infrastructure at a breakneck pace and faster than anyone else in the world. And as of now, whatever number of nuclear warheads they already have with them, they are targeting to have at least 1,000, possibly more nuclear warheads by 2030. Now, for a comparison, India has about 100, 120 warheads, and we are not building to that scale and not to that ambition. Chinese nuclear warheads are still much, much lesser than the Russians or the Americans, who have maybe about 18,000, 20,000, but they have systems and protocols in place, bilateral START treaty, for example, and newer versions of that. But with the Chinese, it's not the case. Now, one explanation given is that Chinese are doing this because they want to use this nuclear umbrella, a very ready nuclear umbrella, to shield themselves when they carry out an operation, if need arises so, to take over Taiwan, which of course Xi Jinping and the Chinese CCP is planning to do in the next few years. There is no particular deadline, but it's likely that they might do it before 2030. Now, remember what happened when President Trump was visiting Beijing just a fortnight back. We had Xi Jinping do some plain speaking in front of cameras and say that on the question of Taiwan, let's not go into a dangerous place. That was in the Chinese use of words, a clear warning that stay out and stay away whenever we act on Taiwan. But if need be, the Chinese are carrying out a proactive defense shield plan, a nuclear defense shield plan. They already have their ICBMs, or intercontinental ballistic missiles, which can reach any city of the United States, and the Dongfeng 5 plus and advanced series of missiles. But what is interesting is that at these sites in Xinjiang, at least 100 nuclear capable or nuclear tipped missiles are locked and loaded, as in present at launch pads in locked and loaded state, which means that it seems that all this nuclear infrastructure upgrade being carried out by the Chinese is essentially aimed at providing them with a second strike capability. What this means is that if the Americans, for example, or anyone else for that matter, launches a nuclear attack on China, these distant in the desert nuclear infrastructure sites are capable of providing them with enough time to hit back with their own nuclear strike. Now, what is important is, should this worry India? Remember, when we carried out our Pokhran tests, the then Defense Minister George Fernandez famously said that these are not aimed at Pakistan. We remember also have another northern neighbor. The Chinese had made much hue and cry about it at that time. But the fact of the matter is that this same site in Xinjiang or Lop is pretty close to India's border with China and abuts Ladakh. And so it should be an area of concern. But primarily, as of now, this is a message to the Americans. And perhaps they allowed the Americans to watch them with their satellites, because China wants to send a message that please do not mess around with us when we take Taiwan. So as in the case of verbal warning, with Xi sitting next to President Trump or Trump sitting next to President Xi, these reports clearly suggest that China is in a mood to back it up with a nuclear umbrella in case an action or military action is needed to take over Taiwan. America watching.
All right, viewers, now let's move on to another top story.